Sonic, the heart of your system.
I'm Leo Walder for Kit Guru, back from CES, back in dear old Blighty, and it's raining here. I know that myself and Briony did a wrap-up video at the end of CES on the Friday in front of that extraordinary religious shrine with all that saffron going on in the colour scheme. But I've had a few more thoughts, and I thought I'd kind of do a wrap-up of a wrap-up, as it were. So obviously the headline news of CES, the absolute tip-top main feature story, is that Briony got to meet both BitWit Kyle at the Fantex suite, and also Steve from Gamersnexus at InWin in the LVCC, Las Vegas Convention Center. Or, if you prefer it the other way around, BitWit Kyle got to meet Briony and Steve got to meet Briony. That's entirely depending on your point of view. Nonetheless, we got some photos, we're happy, Brian is very happy, and there are also some products. I think I'm also going to just give you a little bit of a sort of a picture of what CES is actually like to get around. It's my second CES. Last year, Las Vegas was completely foreign territory to me. This is not me carping and bitching money, by the way. This is just giving you an idea of what the place is like. You may well have been to Las Vegas on holiday. Great many people do. It's not my kind of town. The whole gambling thing and such like, not interested. I mean, there are other things to do, and we did some of those other things, but nonetheless, it's not a particularly enjoyable town, in my opinion. It's also an extraordinary place, the idea of a city in the desert. But what you may not be aware of, if you've either just seen Las Vegas in, the Ocean's movies and such like, or indeed if you've just been on a regular holiday, is, for one thing, it's a big place. 3 million population now, approximately. The population is booming there. A bunch of people have moved out of California. The city is big. The other thing, obviously, is it's mainly a tourist town, but they have conventions all the time. And CES is the biggest convention they have all year. Depending on who you speak to, it 160, 180, even 200,000 visitors. There's probably about 20,000 vendors included in that. So how many media and how many just visitors, I don't know the breakdown, but it's a lot of people. While CES is there, it's heaving in the strip area and also downtown, which is 7 miles away. Go elsewhere and it's really quiet. It's a bizarre city, and in a sense I feel actually quite bad for the civilians, the tourists who have gone there just to walk around and drink drinks and gamble and look at the showgirls in those feather plumes and such like, because we get in their way. On the other hand, they get in our way, so there's a bit of tension there on occasion. And the reason is this: when you go to the LVCC, the Las Vegas Convention Center, that's just it's actually a great big series of halls. So LVCC, you go there, it's a barn, it's noisy, depending on where you go, it's either brightly lit or dim as anything, and the geography is just what it is. You just go from booth to booth to booth, looking at phones, 5G, the camera companies there, all the car companies are there. There's loads of stuff to see, loads of eye candy, most of it irrelevant to Kit Guru. Kia had a prototype car, which is like a pod with little wheels and this whole cabin thing. When you see curved LCD screens and such like, that's the kind of environment they like to be in. Yeah, sure, you're going to get them on wearables like handbags and hats and such like, and also in elevators in the corner, just have a little panel, you'll have curved surfaces, we know that, but it's the interior of cars and I guess aircraft and such like is where you're going to see things like curved LCD screens in the future. Things like roll-up TVs and such like are all jolly good fun, and they may or may not become part of our lives, but you see bits of technology and you see products, and then you see where they're going to go in the future. Fascinating to see, but nonetheless, getting around at LVCC, hard work. And then you go to the hotels. Now, this is the bit that may not be apparent. If you already are vaguely familiar with Las Vegas, you've got the Strip, which is 1.5 miles long, I believe, the bit that really counts. And you've got hotels up it. You'll have heard, so Mandalay Bay and the MGMs and Bellagio and Venetian and Trump and Wynn and so on and so forth. Loads of hotels. I mean, Las Vegas is built, it's just hotel galore, as you would expect, because it's a holiday town. And some of those hotels are very large. 4,000 rooms used to be huge. Now they're pushing to 5,000 rooms. These are big, big places. But that doesn't give you an indication of just how big they are. So you arrive at the Bellagio, and the first direction is go through the casino, turn right, go to the guest elevators. Okay. And Caesar's Palace, you go there, and you have to first find the correct tower, and then find the correct floor, and then find the correct room. The walking is almost endless. Between hotels you don't walk, you get an Uber or a cab because the distances are large. Within each hotel it's like you're in a village. So finding the one or two vendors who are in each hotel, I mean, I'm not going to say it's difficult finding a hotel room, but there's logistics involved. We did 16 videos at CES, one of those being the wrap-ups of 15 actual videos, and a couple of those are done at LVCC. Getting around the other places, it was a grind, and it was also a toss of the coin as to who it was worth seeing, because we didn't see everybody we wanted to see, which is really frustrating because it's almost impossible. Myself and Briony were running around like crazy. We had intended to have another person from Kitguru out there who'd have been doing news gathering. In the ideal world, you do the Gamersnexus thing and you have 4 people, 2 teams of 2. I don't know if Steve had a second team out there, and they go out there doing B-roll and scouting, and then you work as a team. You have to work as a team, otherwise it's just impossible. One-man band, if you're doing that, good luck to you. So the logistics, an army marches on its stomach. Generals don't think about tactics, they think about logistics. That's what CES is like. Also, the show's too big these days. It covers such an enormous gamut of products. I could be interested in almost anything there, but I'll be there all year just looking at stuff. And how much is relevant to Kit Guru readers, that's tricky. I mean, and the trouble is also some of the stuff, things like headphones, a lot of headphones there. I guess there's a lot of margin in headphones, but they're rotten for videos. You know, you put them on, you go, you know, what can you say? And similarly, the screens. I mean, there are so many. 8K obviously is coming, so big screens, big TVs, fabulous to look at, loads of eye candy, and then in a Razer we saw an OLED panel and a laptop and so on and so forth. But you've always got the fear, I can see this thing, it looks absolutely brilliant. How's it going to look once it's been through the camera and processed and gone out and gone up the internet and gone to YouTube? You think, are you going to see the eye candy that I'm seeing? You're just never sure. And then particularly you might be watching a little phone and then it's like, oh, well, that's your 80-inch 8K TV right there. So that's awkward. And then you end up, so you've got loads of things going on, and then you end up seeing the products, and frankly that takes away some of the concern. I mean, you obviously have to nail the video as best as you can, get the photos right, and then try and get across the point that you want. And then the irony is that sometimes you miss some of the points, and that was actually pretty much the gist of the video I did at Nvidia's suite. Which ironically is overlooking a golf course. There's a golf course behind the Wynn in Las Vegas, and you stand looking at it going, what sort of place builds a golf course in a desert, which kind of epitomizes Las Vegas? Well, that and the fountains at the Bellagio with Elvis singing Viva Las Vegas, but I digress. So the big themes of CES 2019, as I say, so Briony met BitWit Kyle, Steve from Gamersnexus. That's the number one story. The others, there are some other people there. So Nvidia, they had a thing. Announcement which came as no surprise because it was leaked a couple of days beforehand eventually, despite all the NDAs, which the NDAs, they are just a pain in the backside. So RTX 2060 for the desktop, and despite all the rumours beforehand, it seems that GDDR6, 6GB thereof, that is the thing, and you're going to get mini ITX, you're going to get regular, and you're going to get cards that are overclocked and cards with big coolers, pretty much exactly as you expect, and all the other bits and pieces, the other permutations and such like, don't appear to be a thing. Perhaps they will become a thing. Right now they are not a thing. Also, Nvidia for laptops, RTX 2080, 2070, 2060 for laptops, same number of CUDA cores each as the regular desktop chips. I believe the modules sometimes might be MXM, sometimes chips on board, and you'll hear the terminology Max Q, and then the corollary, if that's the word, is Max P. So Max Q is the quiet version, the less power, less clock speed, cooled down version. Max P is it's a desktop chip running at desktop clocks. And every laptop, pretty much, apart from the thinner lights that are Intel only, every laptop was Nvidia RTX. Understandably so. So you get it's got a thin bezel, it's got this, it's got that, and it kind of threw up a dividing line, which is logically an RTX 2080, you're going to be pushing 4K gaming, aren't you? Why do you need that grunty graphics otherwise? But not necessarily. 1440p, that's definitely a thing, and even 1080, why not if it's a good 1080 panel? Because you might want a 240Hz or whatever refresh panel, mightn't you? So are you going for the high resolution? Are you going for the high refresh rate? What kind of panel technology are you looking at? And as I said in that Nvidia video, there's a phrase, Nvidia video, DLSS and AI, DLSS, when I heard it from Nvidia, I got the wrong end of the stick. I thought it's a form of anti-aliasing. The references were to other versions of anti-aliasing, saying anti-aliasing, this reduces performance less, was kind of how I interpreted it. And other people I spoke to interpreted it the same way. Not so. The idea is it renders at a lower resolution and then boosts it out to the screen. So RTX on hurts performance because it's more work. DLSS improves performance. Combine the two, give or take, they say, broadly speaking, performance remain the same, image is better. Well, if that's how it works in practice, blooming good news. We'll have to see, obviously. And the other point that I picked up from the Nvidia people was that DLSS is down to the drivers. As they update drivers with what they've learned, the drivers will be doing more stuff. So driver versions on reviews are going to be absolutely critical when you're talking about performance in particular. So that is interesting stuff, but balanced against that, it's a pain in the neck in the sense that laptops are now frozen for the next X months, because anybody that's just launching laptops with the RTX graphics, they ain't going to want to change them for the next thing until the next thing happens, which is going to be Intel 9th gen mobile processors. So common sense says that they said Q2, it'll be Computex. Now, the Intel keynote, as I covered in a news piece at the time, it was all about promises, essentially. I mean, we'll link to the news piece, but it was promises. It was talk about 10 nanometer. It was talk about stuff. I mean, in fairness to Intel, they did at least talk about 10 nanometer, and they have been quiet on the subject. So they want to now say that 10 nanometer, it's all fine. It's all going to happen during 2019. But when you're saying that in the second week of January 2019, talking about holiday 2019, that's a year away. So to say mobile 9th gen processors, presumably on 14 nanometer, well, okie dokie. As to what else comes along, they're saying, yeah, we have launched some commercial products on 10 nanometer. Well, true, but how many? And were they really basic products? Well, we believe they were. What have they got coming? They're going to do server chips. Well, yeah, none of which even touches on yields. Doesn't begin, which is what we understand is a major problem with 10 nanometer, which is that yields are atrocious as we understand it. Why? Who knows? I mean, they're up against the edges of science here. So the idea that Intel's got stuff coming and that they're feeling all boosterish about 2019, yeah, okay. Great, but till we see it, we can't really believe it, because in the past, Intel had an engineering problem to hit, or they had a roadmap, and you were confident they'd do it. But they've now had 2 years of problems, and now my confidence and everybody else's confidence is ebbing away, understandably so. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's going to be Q2 for Computex, will be 9th gen processors and laptops. And then the other stuff, I mean, the 28 core Xeon, the W375X, haven't seen that. We saw motherboards, which is basically ROG Dominus. The Gigabyte board seems to have kind of melted away. I mean, I'm sure it's around, but it seems to be the Zeus ROG Dominus is the board. We also saw a super micro board for the same processor, because it's Intel Xeon scalable. So that's a thing. But nonetheless, ROG Dominus appears to be the thing, and a few companies have come up with cooling hardware for, so EKWB and Fantex had VRM hardware, and also Block for the processor. So when the processor happens, there is definitely kit to support it. We also saw cases. The Fantex Elite, which has been around for a while, which is a monster case, supports it. And there's also that new InWin where Briony met up with Steve. So that's all good stuff. I mean, but basically a big case will do the job, and there are at least two on the market. At least one motherboard is a thing, and the two others have been promised. Cooling hardware from two companies, that's fine. Now give us the processors. That's all there is to it. And the rumoured price going around at CES is now $8,000. Before CES it was $5,000. Now, I originally said, why wouldn't it be $10,000? Because that's the price of the comparable actual proper Xeons. And in a sense, this is better than those. In another sense, it's worse than those. So why not 10,000? 8,000 seems entirely... I mean, it's obviously outrageous, but why not? There's also apparently going to be a 24-core version, but as to what that's about, we'll have to wait and see. So that, I guess that's a product stack. As to the model code, the 24-core, not a clue. But nonetheless, the 28-core has not yet happened. Presumably it will happen, and hopefully very soon. But really strange that it wasn't there at CES. Intel was showing off its own laptop, or not its own laptops with its hardware at its booth. The booth, this is the thing with Intel. They're a very wealthy company. They've got a load of money, they've got a load of development, they're very slick, they do a good job, and they're showing off stuff. So they're showing off a thing to do with the remake of Grease, the movie, after... was it 30 years ago or 40 years ago? A long time ago. They were showing off a thing where they did it on a green screen stage, a great big curved infinity type stage with a whole cast and some massive number of cameras, 70 or something cameras. And they're able to just take in the whole scene in one, process the video. This is against Chroma. And then they could basically move everything around as they wanted because they basically had data. It was essentially turning the movie set into a light field camera as far as I could work out. And then they could process anything they wanted so people could be moved around. They could change characters, you could be dancing with dinosaurs if you wanted, and so on and so forth. Very clever, pretty much irrelevant to my life, and the idea that they couldn't have done something similar in the past, I struggle to see. So impressive demo, and the same is true of a few other things they were doing, but nonetheless it was, where's the 10 nanometer, where's the stuff, let's push forward, chaps. So very slick show, didn't see what I wanted to see. By contrast, AMD, they announced a lot of stuff. They demonstrated some stuff. They promised some stuff. They didn't actually have a lot of stuff at CES. And in particular, AMD-powered laptops. Very thin on the ground still. I mean, that's one area of the market that's just got a great big AMD-shaped hole. The obvious thing, the thing that we all saw, was an AMD Ryzen 3rd gen processor. And again, we're into this, is it 2nd gen, is it Zen 2, what, the model code and such like. So that should be a Zen 2 with a Ryzen 3000 part number. And it beat Core i9 9900K in Cinebench by a small margin, but it beat it fair and square. And it was fairly clear from what Lisa Su was holding up that it's a chip with a 14 nanometer IOX and a single 7 nanometer chiplet. There was a space on the package where a second chiplet quite clearly was just destined to drop into place. So the assumption was that there's, not that she said as much, is that this 8-core part was very possibly a Ryzen 5. And that would mean that a Ryzen 7 would be 12-core and a Ryzen 9 would be 16-core, if the rumours are correct. Which is obviously, humongous news, because what AMD wasn't saying exactly, but what they appeared to be demonstrating, is that their new mid-range, lower mid-range part can kick the king of desktop processors. That's what they seem to be showing. As for pricing, don't know. They showed power and it beat it on power. So it appeared to be a 65 watt part beating a 95 watt part, and obviously TDP is not the actual power draw, but it looked as though their mid-range, lower mid-range Ryzen 5 65 watt part beat out Core i9 9900K in a straight fight. That's impressive. That suggests that Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9, if those are the parts that come along, will beat it out far more. You'd have to assume a second chiplet on the same package is going to hurt thermals, so as to how clock speeds respond and so on, remains all to be seen. Nonetheless, that demo, at first flush, what AMD was doing was bringing out the best processor they had, beating narrowly the best that Intel has, and basically playing catch up. Doesn't seem that way at all. What it looks like is they're saying, here's this thing, just wait what's coming for Computex. And May being AMD's big birthday suggests that's going to be a May Day holiday birthday kind of thing, and then Computex is going to be way. It looks like 2019 is AMD desktop nirvana, and fair play to them for that. Similarly on the server side of things, Epic Rome, that's coming imminent, coming in the first half of 2019. I've lost track. Nonetheless, the sooner they can actually deliver those processors to anyone with the cash to buy them, rather than just to select customers, the better. That quite clearly has to be a major step forward for AMD. So they're looking really good. And what else? So yeah, the promises from Intel about Project Athena, following on from Ultrabook. No idea what it means. It was literally a word on the screen. This thing about Lakefield that combines big CPUs with Atom small CPUs. We've seen similar stuff from phone companies, big, small, or small, little, or whatever the heck it's called. The idea is not a bad idea. Instead of clocking down a processor where it gets really inefficient, just put a tiddly processor alongside the bigger processor. Stuff like that I'm looking forward to seeing, but very hard to get excited about. By contrast, the idea that AMD has got X570 PCI Express 4, well, okay, PCI Express 4, I can't honestly say I'm gagging to, see it, but nonetheless, each thing that takes us forward is a good thing. It looks in the first instance, as though PCI Express 4 might be a firmware update for your existing primary graphics slot, and suddenly bing, it becomes PCI Express 4. So I'm not actually expecting it to make a blind bit of difference in the first instance, but it's one of those preparatory things. When you've got motherboards that are ready, then you can put the next graphics in. On the subject of next graphics, AMD Radeon VII is due on the 7th of February with a price tag of $699, $700. Lots of sevens going on there. It's a 7nm Vega part, hence the emphasis on 7. Uses HBM memory. It is not Navi. Navi is yet to come. It seems as though what they've done is they've taken a data center part and they've made it into a desktop graphics card. Presumably the cost to AMD of doing this, next to nothing. The fact that it's due to have performance, I'm not clear if it's going to be GTX 1080 or RTX 2080. Not clear at all. But we should be in that kind of territory, i.e. properly decent graphics card without attempting to leap forward. The fact that Jensen Huang felt the need to get shouty about it and say it doesn't have ray tracing, we'll crush it, it's nothing to us. The fact he didn't just ignore it, that suggests to me that it's a thing. And the reason I think it's a thing is pricing. $700 for that card sounds quite expensive. It is quite expensive. It probably makes sense for that card in that market position given the cost of HBM and such like. Nonetheless, Nvidia has been pushing pricing up and up and up, and they do not want to go back. It's a one-way ratchet. Each generation they've pushed it up. They've brought out a Titan at more. People buy it. Okay, Titan V. Okay, Titan XP. Okay, RTX comes along. And then you get the partner RTX cards, and they're up to $1,500 for a partner RTX 2080 Ti, which is just crazy. And the question is then going to be, well, why not 2,000? After all, you can get Titans for, is it 2.5? I've lost track. So loads of money. And each time we sort of gulp and buy them, Nvidia goes, okay, that's set the new floor. And now we move on. And if AMD can bring along a Radeon 7 that, even if it's not technically new, apart from being a die shrink to 7nm, if it's a sensible price for sensible performance, and $700 should actually be high performance, then that's good. That helps us. So it might not have ray tracing, it might not be genuinely new, but nonetheless, it's welcome. And that's it. That was CES 2019. So we've got 6 months till Computex, or slightly under, where we'll see definitely a load of new stuff. But right now, I'm drawing a line. CES 2019, we've done it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, well, thumbs down if you must. Hit the bell button. We'll tell you about new videos as they become available. I'm Leo Waldock. This is me rambling about CES 2019.
That's it, you got it. Breathe. That's all you. I'm gonna let go. All right, where's JB at? Nice and flat. Now, with your right eye, look inside the hole. You put the top of this post inside. You go ahead and shoot whenever. There you go. Good shot.
Step in, brother. Right there for me.
Straighten your right leg out.
There you go. Give me 1 second.